before Mr. Mashaba woke up and started attacking us, we didn't have fundamental issues. You didn't have the kind of personality differences. And what I'm afraid of is that if you place the EFF at the center of government, as Mr. Mashaba proposes to do, then those people might be at risk. The culture of professionalism that we have built in the past 18 months might be at risk. Mr. Mashaba keeps on saying that. He keeps on saying, we're bringing this functional, stable coalition to a fall because we fear that the DA started talking to the ANC with a view of removing us. And every time he's challenged to give proof of that, he says, I don't have to give proof. Why? Because he's lying. He's coming up with ex post facto rationalizations and explanations for his own dishonest conduct. Now, what I do have proof of is the attempt.
But if you say that the issues stem from what has happened or transpired nationally, you guys as a region could have isolated the issues. We've seen with the African National Congress, they've been able to isolate issues. The EFF, for instance, is not part of the GNU, but in the region of Johannesburg, they're within the fold insofar as their coalition agreement is concerned. Their MMCs are there. So meaning you could have isolated whatever the picture looks like nationally and negotiated.
You mean between us and Action SA?
Yes, because I'm saying we've seen what has happened.
Love to talk about that.
Yes, that you could have isolated the national issues where they've decided to be outside of the GNU and, as they say, be a constructive opposition. Because you guys, there's nobody now to watch the watchmen, as they've stated. So you could have isolated the issues and say, in the metro, we want to stabilize ourselves here, so we're going to negotiate differently and just ignore their position at a national level. So where were the failures there?
So the key question for me is, and commentators often say this, but why can't you solve the dispute between you?
Yes.
The fact is there is no dispute. There was no dispute. In the past 18 months, we had cleared 3 important disputes. The one related to the power stations of the city, the second related to the insourcing of workers, the third related to a set of delegations to the city manager. Me and the Deputy Mayor, Nasipi Moya, who still serves with my delegations in the mayoral committee, sat and we cleared all of those issues. Now, if you reach a point where a coalition partner says, we're done with the coalition with your bad performance, you'd expect them to be able to show, at this point, we raised the following dispute. It wasn't satisfactorily cleared. We weren't happy with the answers. And this is why we leave. The fact is there was no dispute.
But there was an allegation, as we've heard, of that the Democratic Alliance was possibly speaking with the African National Congress.
Where's the proof of that? Mr.
Is this the case, or there was no such thing?
So let's talk about this. Mr. Mashaba keeps on saying that. He keeps on saying, we're bringing this functional, stable coalition to a fall because we fear that the DA started talking to the ANC with a view of removing us. And every time he's challenged to give proof of that, he says, I don't have to give proof. Why? Because he's lying. He's coming up with ex post facto rationalizations and explanations for his own dishonest conduct. Now, what I do have proof of is the attempts that I made at every turn to try and keep Action SA in the coalition. Once Mr. Mashaba started attacking us during the course of August in public, saying that he wants a different coalition, my first port of call was the Deputy Mayor, Action SA's leader in government. She made it clear to me that the instruction came from national government, that there wasn't a local dispute for us to resolve. I then reached out to Michael Beaumont, the national chairperson of Action SA. He suggested that we meet, and I followed up, and I tried, and I did everything to have that meeting take place, to understand what we can do to accommodate Action SA, whatever their grievance is. He stonewalled me. So we tried until the very end. Now, why would a mayor and coalition partners who want to eject Action SA from government go to those lengths, where we've even written to them from the Coalition Management Committee letters to say, please stop attacking government, come to the negotiating table, use the mechanisms that we have in terms of our coalition agreement to resolve the issues that you might have.
Because as it stands now, you have 108 seats, if we're speaking of the coalition government. 108, they, I believe, have 19 FF plus 17, and so it goes. One would say, I actually listened to one of your interviews that you conducted with another colleague, where you stated that for a coalition government to work, you need, one, a majority, which you guys had, and secondly, ideological
coherence.
Yes. And in this instance, one would say on the face of it, you had that. One would say that there were no significant differences that you would need to reconcile with the Action SA. I mean, they are a breakaway from the DA in any case. So it seemed as though there were no differences. But here you are today. Someone is still, many are baffled as to how you arrive here. But commentators say, it's not us, but commentators say there's a lack of humility when it comes to the Democratic Alliance. Because for the longest time, you've had Michael Beaumont conducting interviews where we'd state that you come across as the big brother in a coalition, where it's the Democratic Alliance's way and no other.
And it's very interesting that these accusations are made by national leaders of Action SA. They're not made by the deputy mayor, by local leaders. I can imagine there will now be pressure on people like Nasipi Moya to come up with these issues. But the point is, before Mr. Mashaba woke up and started attacking us, we didn't have fundamental issues. You didn't have the kind of personality differences that you saw, for instance, between Trollip and Bobane in Nelson Mandela Bay, where there was this power struggle between mayor and deputy mayor. When I came to be the coalition mayor, not the DA mayor, the coalition mayor in Tshwane, I realized that these things, the accusations of arrogance and so forth, are very often used against the DA.
But coming from a national level.
Sometimes as a negotiating tactic to say, oh no, but you're so arrogant, show us your good faith. And we implemented that coalition agreement to the T. We established the position of deputy mayor under great criticism, including from the ANC, to say, why are you doing this? We don't have money for this. But
even employees within the metro felt
established that because that was part of the agreement. And if you're in a coalition government, the best way to show good faith humility is actually to stick to what you agreed to. I didn't make that agreement, but the moment that I became mayor, it was incumbent on me to implement it, to enable significant power sharing. And you'd also imagine that if the problem was an arrogant mayor or somebody who doesn't want to share power, you'd have the other coalition partners, the FF+, the IFP, the ACDP, those parties lining up behind Action SA to all tell the same story.
But they could say they're the second biggest. Maybe they felt entitled to more positions than the others.
Well, there's a 2-seat difference between the Freedom Front Plus and Action SA. And they are just as baffled as we are about the conduct of Mr. Mashaba and Action SA. So it's very unfortunate. We had a good chance as a coalition, regardless of what happened in government of national unity or anywhere else. We didn't have to consider the options of a government of national unity because together we had a majority. And our coalition partners, and I must emphasize this point, when I say we have done well, when I say we've made progress, it's not me taking credit. It is the credit for a team. It's a team effort. It's a joint effort. It is our joint program of action. And unfortunately, Action SA has taken one big sledgehammer and just destroyed that.
So in 2 days' time, there's a possibility that you will be removed. You were voted into council at the age of 23, starting off in 2011, and you moved to become MMC, I believe, in 2016. It seemed as though you had a good record. You were just on the rise. And now it could all end in 2 days. How do you feel?
Well, it's not about me. This is a young coalition country. We've just, in terms of our line of history, come out of dominant party democracy. And the metros are an important place where we model coalitions. Because I promise you, the likelihood of a party gaining a majority in 2026 at the next local government election is very slim. So we have to take our experiences of governing the metros in Gauteng, of Tshwane, and see how do we do coalitions better. It's not about me. What I am worried about is the independent professionals which this government recruited. People who took us at our word when we said, we don't want politicians, we don't want deployed cadres, we want folks who can do the best possible job. And what I'm afraid of is that if you place the EFF at the center of government, as Mr. Mashaba proposes to do, then those people might be at risk. The culture of professionalism that we have built in the past 18 months might be at risk. So I don't know what's going to happen if you look at the numbers, if the ANC goes on with a motion of no confidence, if Action SA votes for that motion of no confidence, we will be out of government. I will go to opposition and do the best I can possibly do there. I've got no control over that, but I think it is worth an effort to think about what is the solution to Tshwane's problems. Is it going to be to vote a motion of no confidence, more political instability, another churning of politicians? Or is it going to be to say, what progress have we already made, and how can we build on that progress going forward?
Mayor Brink, thank you very much for joining us on the program.